Thanks. Good. Got it. So we know that there is a learning loss during the summer for kids who don't read, and our summer reading program is an attempt to remedy that for the kids who participate. We also know that kids can get pretty bored during the summer and lonely as well. So our summer reading program offers them a way to connect to others, particularly if they come to our activities, keeps them from being bored at home, uses their minds, develops their curiosity. It helps parents, of course, to have a place to take their children where their child's mind will be stimulated. And it reinforces to families the idea of the library as a third space, that place beyond, beyond the home and the school, this third space where families can come and enjoy being together and feel comfortable and safe. Also, summer reading programs benefit the library. They help the library fulfill its mission. They boost statistics, which stakeholders often rely on to judge a library's success. And they demonstrate to the community that the library is active and a key part of the community. It's always interesting when libraries do surveys, even people who never darken the door of the library will often be in approval of the library. And that's because they know that the library does a lot of things for kids usually. So that demonstration of the library as an active heart of the community is important as well. So Jack, I think I'm going to need you to go to the next slide for me. Thank you. So let's, we unpacked benefiting kids, teens, and families a little bit. I'm going to actually skip ahead if you want to go to the next slide. We talked about summer learning loss, yep, social connections, and keep going. And onward. And the benefits to the library, the mission, the statistics, and the value to the community. Okay, so now let's go on to the next one. So let's talk about goals. We are all better to have goals for any project that we want to undertake. It's more likely that we're going to be able to do what we set out to do. So there are some common goals that are shared by all libraries. And Jack, summer reading program offers activities. That's a goal that most libraries have, that we want to offer activities that engage kids and teens in reading and using the library. That's a goal for us. And next, we want to promote the library as a common community good that deserves support. So that goes back to what I was saying before about folks seeing all that the library has to offer. They don't know that that program that you planned on turtles had only 3 people. So we want the idea to be the library does good things for kids and teens. The library gives kids and teens a place to go during the summer. And the library encourages reading, which is important for success. And already up there, another goal that most libraries share is that no staff member has a nervous breakdown because of summer reading program. All right, onward. So how do we define success as a library? You can choose these. You can choose what your goal is. You don't want to choose all of them. So you might say, oh, we're going to reach out to the population of immigrants from Botswana who, are a larger population in our community than they have been in past years, and we really want to engage them. So that can be a goal. Or we want to build X number of community partnerships. We really feel like we're falling down in that a little bit. So let's try to build some more partnerships through summer reading program. Or we can try to increase the numbers. So go ahead, Jack. Registration would be one example of numbers that libraries often try to increase. So ways to do this, we can lengthen the registration period. When I started, it used to be common to have registration for maybe the first 2 weeks of summer reading program, and after that you didn't allow people to register. Well, if you allow people to register up until the week before summer reading program, you get that much more participation. So that's an idea. You can widen the age range for your summer reading program, so you make it 0 to 80, if your library is going to do an adult summer reading program. And you can deepen your penetration into the community through visiting community groups like schools, particularly. They are the most important. So that's increasing numbers for registration. So moving on. What about the people who complete? That's harder. So you can post lots of social media reminders. That does tend to bring more people in. You can send email or text reminders to individuals if you choose to take that information from them when they register. You can table at community events to just be that visible reminder. And you can have a good incentive for the end, like a free book. Often that does motivate some people to really get it done, and so that they can get their free book. Moving on. And you can increase numbers in participation in programs. You can have more programs. So you can do more programs in-house, or you can develop, or you can hire people to do them. You can collaborate with another community organization, or you can put up more passive programs. So things that are in the library that are self-directed, and youth can do it when they come into the library at whatever time. Or you can have more all-age programs. We know that all-age programs tend to bring in larger audiences. So doing more that are a very wide age range, or we say everyone's welcome, gives you more numbers. For these, you can partner. You can simply plan fewer of the specific narrow age range programs and have more all-age programs, and that will increase your numbers there. So those are some ideas about why we do summer reading program and how we can define success for ourselves. Over to Beth. Maybe you have to skip that one, Beth. Okay. Pardon us while we deal with some technical difficulties here.
You're muted, Beth.
Okay. I'm unmuted and I'm on the right screen. So we're going to talk about building your best summer reading program by taking a project management approach. Project management is essential for a successful summer reading program, and most of us don't have formal training in that. But the great news is that anyone can learn to be a project manager, and you can improve with practice. There are multiple models for project management, but the simplest project management lifecycle that I've shared here has 4 parts. There's initiating, planning, executing, and closing. And we're going to take a look at each part of the cycle. So initiating. The first step of any project is to define the project. You already know that you're going to be holding a summer reading program. You need to decide what that will look like in your library. I'll be sharing some key pieces to think about when you begin planning and some tools to help you stay organized. So this stage is the pre-planning stage. There are lots of considerations to think about when you're planning a summer reading program. And once you have your skeleton in place, you can start fleshing out your larger program. And here are some of the things that you will want to determine. Goals. What are the goals for your library? Mary mentioned several goals in her presentation, and I have pretty much the same one. And I would encourage you to just pick 1 or 2 of those to focus on, not try to work on everything all in the same summer. Resources. What does your staff look like? Do you have dedicated individuals who are only going to be working on summer reading during your summer? Or do your staff members have to work circulation or reference desks? Do they have to shelve materials? Do they have to do adult programming as well? Those are important considerations. How much bandwidth does your team have? How many people are on your team? It all impacts what you're able to do. Space. Do you have any? Do you have a program room? Do you need to go outside? Do you need to go to the park? Do you need to use a different community building? And if you do you need to get permission from those organizations? Do you have a budget? Do you have a dedicated SRP budget? Or do you know how much you can spend in a summer without impacting yourself negatively for the other 9 or 10 months of your program year? Will you be able to get additional funding? Will your friends group or your foundation give you money to help support your program? Are there donors? Businesses often will give you prizes. Sometimes they'll give you gift cards. Do you have somebody who can help you get those donations? Do you have volunteers? Do you need them? And if you have them, who's going to manage them? And community partners. Who can you work with at perhaps no cost or low cost, or whose building or space can you use to make your library more successful, your library program more successful? When and where? So the most important decision is, when are you going to start and when are you going to end? Once you've chosen your goals and evaluated your resources, it's time to pick those dates. What's your library's capacity? Some libraries run a program for 4 weeks in July. Some libraries run a program for 10 or 12 weeks. It's a big difference, and it definitely depends on what your community is looking for and what your library and your library team is able to do. Hold a meeting to discuss your goals and your budget and your calendar with whoever is on your team for SRP. And if you don't have a team, still take the time to sit down and think about those things by yourself. If you're having big programs at different points throughout the summer, make sure you have your rooms booked. Don't, wait and then find out that the library is hosting a meeting or some other group has taken the space and that you no longer have a spot to hold your event. Kickoff parties and finale events. Some libraries do one, some libraries do both. Some libraries hire a presenter for them. Those are all things to think about. Again, we talked about, will all your programs be held at the library? Are there other spaces in your community that you can partner with? Will you visit summer schools and day camps or daycare centers? Will you do outreach while you're doing summer reading? What else is happening in your community? When are the swimming lessons? When is the town rec department running their summer camp or summer classes? Does your library or does your community hold concerts every Tuesday night in the park? If they do, don't plan programs on Tuesday night. Like, don't compete with the other big things that are happening that are going to draw families already. Work together. Okay. Due dates and extra time. It's never really too early to begin planning SRP, and the more time you give yourself, the more organized you can be. So lots of things to think about. Your start and end dates, like I said. When does your fiscal officer or bookkeeper need your contract backed from Eddie Presenter so that bills can get paid? Marketing materials. Are you going to print them in-house? Are you going to send them out to a vendor to print? How much lead time do you need to get marketing materials organized, edited, printed back to you? Are you going to visit schools? Are you going to bring paper materials to your schools? Are you going to just do constant contact or email blasts? Those are all things to think about. Do you need to go shopping? I've never yet run a summer reading program where I didn't have to make a shopping spree through Walmart. It takes time. It takes planning. You have to build that in. The sooner you get your supplies, the sooner you can start prepping. So you need to know what supplies you need before summer starts. Build your staff needs into your schedule from the outset. Is somebody traveling for a wedding? Is somebody expecting a new family member? Does somebody want to take a vacation? Those are all real life things that happen. And if you can plan it so your library staff can take vacation during the summer, that's wonderful because sometimes it doesn't happen. The most important thing to remember is there's no one right way to do SRP. The best way is the one that works for your library. Okay. So the next stage is planning. We already talked about a lot of pre-planning, but once we have the answers to all of those questions, the in-depth planning begins. So I recommend that you're planning a time that you're meeting regularly. I used to meet once a month with my team starting in January, and then it was every 2 weeks. And then for the last few weeks before summer, it was every single week. Try not to let other things get in the way of those meetings. It's very easy. Stuff comes up all the time, but try to hold those meeting times firm because you need the planning time. Try to have a do we have everything we need meeting right before kickoff. It also can be really helpful to have like a midpoint check-in to just be like, hey, how's everybody doing? We're halfway there. Yay. What else do we need to do? Make sure everyone is communicating about their ideas for programs and performers. You know, we don't all want to be contacting the same performer trying to get them to come to our library. Make sure you have your planning tools, a timeline, your shared calendar, a to-do list. I like Post-its and markers. I'm a big fan of color coding. If you do a digital calendar, like a Google Calendar, it's very easy to color code. And as you start to book your performers and plan your programs, you can start filling in. You know, the yellow might be early childhood and the purple might be teens. And you can see at a glance how many for each age group you have and when they're falling and what a specific week's load looks like. I highly recommend you set a due date for finalizing your calendar. And after that point, it is done. Save the additional awesome ideas for next month, or excuse me, the next season or even the next summer. You don't have to do everything in one summer. So this is a sample of an SRP program planning calendar that I used with my team in the past. You can see up at the top, every age group had a color, every title was color coded so that we knew what age group it was for. And then we would put, you know, what time it was, what room it was going to be held in, and staff initials of who was responsible for that program. So the goal is to have a one-stop document that's shareable, reproducible, editable, and has all the information in real time. If you have a big team or multiple people working and you have big areas, it's great if you are the project manager to delineate some of those tasks. So here you can see we had made a list of all the important things, and then we had the staff initials of who was going to be responsible for planning that area, and then we had a backup person in certain instances. And then everybody knows, you know, if I have a question about the volunteers, I go to this person, or if I want to know how we're handling prize raffles, I go to this person. And the last sample that I have from my old library is we started doing weekly themed days for a few years. So like Mondays we would show movies, and Tuesdays we would have book parties, and Wednesdays we would do art and science and music. Thursdays were always story time, and Fridays were sort of like the leftovers. You could have free Fridays and not do any programs. There's no rule that says you have to do a program every day of the week. Certainly, I was at a library that had a large staff, so we could, but if there's only one or two of you, do not do a program every day of the week. You know, build in some long weekends if you can. Your program load should reflect your staff size and your budget. And then the last few years, we started doing themed weeks. And so we would try for whatever programs we planned during the week to fit that theme. And we tried to keep like the story times on a certain day and time and the teen programs on a certain day and time, just for consistency for the public. Okay, so once your calendar's set, it's time to market your program. Will you post on social media? Will you have a paper booklet or paper calendar? Will you share it with patrons, with school librarians and teachers, with preschools that you might do outreach at? Your schools are usually looking for those things in May. You may need the superintendent's permission to send something home through the school. Will you be digital only? Can you do an email blast every week with your programs? Like I said, don't forget to plan for the shopping and the prepping. I always thought it was a good idea to have my supplies ordered the first week in June. That seemed to give us enough time, but if something came earlier, that was, great. And then after all the planning and the shopping and the marketing, it's actually time for summer reading to happen. Here are some tips to keep your summer smooth and fun. Number 1, communicate. Communicate with every department in the building. Share your calendar or your brochure. Summer reading impacts everybody. It's easy to forget when you're in the busyness of every day that it's not just youth services staff who are seeing increased numbers of people and increased traffic. So let the circulation desk know if there's going to be a big event and they're going to get slammed. Maybe they can put on an extra person. If you have people who help you with room setup, let them know ahead of time if you're going to need them to completely rearrange the furniture in the building so that they can plan. Just makes everyone a little happier with each other. Teamwork. Be patient, be kind, share the funny things that happen with everybody. There's going to be funny things that happen during the course of summer reading, without a doubt. Share them, laugh at them. Celebrate your successes and say thank you to each other. And make sure that other people know where the important stuff is. If you are the person in charge, do not be the only person who knows where the program contracts are. And remember the wisdom of Aesop. Summer reading is a marathon. It is not a sprint. Slow and steady wins the race. You have to guard against burnout for yourself and your team. So think about it like a real marathon and do self-care. Don't forget to eat and drink and use sunscreen when you're at outdoor programs. Spend time outside of work doing things you like. Rest. Don't sweat the small stuff. Find out what works for you and do it. Personally, a stress toy and a Dove dark chocolate has gotten me through many an SRP day. Also, ice cream sandwiches. Don't forget to record what's happening. Pictures and stories are so useful for reports, for advocacy, for your institution's memory. Maybe you can have a teen volunteer do your photographing and recording for you. Patrons love it when 3 months down the road, you do a throwback social media post and you're like, hey, remember that Thursday when we did this really cool thing? People love a throwback post. They also love a happening now post. They especially love pictures of cute children doing adorable, fun things. And the donors and the taxpayers like to see their money at work. And all of that leads to building the sense that the library is doing awesome things this summer. Also, keep a list of the faux pas and the light bulb moments when you're like, ooh, I wish I would have thought of that before I did this program. They will happen, and your future self will thank you for it. And the last stage is the completion stage, where you close out your program. You tie up your loose ends, and you're going to think about a couple of different things. It is time to slow down. So you're going to clean up, you're going to reorganize, You're going to see what you've run out of and make sure you still have what you need for fall. If you give out prizes, I encourage you to contact those prize winners and give them a due date to come and pick up their prize. It's really not fun to be holding on to a summer reading prize in October or November. Like, you really just want to move on from that. It's a good time for extra self-care. Once summer reading is over, take a vacation, take a long weekend. You've earned it. Celebrate your successes. How can the library celebrate a successful completion of summer reading program? Will you send out thank you emails to the building? Will you have a staff breakfast with shout outs for people who were big help and support? Will there be yummy treats? I recommend yummy treats. Will you have fun prizes? Make it your own, but take the time to celebrate. It's worth it. Debrief and reflect. We always want to be reflective in our practice with programs, and it's no different with summer reading. Once things have calmed down a little, take some time to think about what went well and what did not. Bring your list of, faux pas and light bulb moments, and think about what you might change next year, what you might want to keep the same. Write those things down because you won't remember them in 6 or 8 months. Tuck it away, and when you start planning for the next year, bring it with you. It'll make your life easier. Statistics, everybody's favorite. Don't forget to fill out your statistics report and send it to one of us. We will be so grateful. Think about the statistics that matter to you. Recognize that these reports are what they are. They are required by the state and federal agencies. Do the best you can with them. Do not let them stress you out. And anytime you have statistics questions, you are always welcome to contact your youth services person. Most importantly, don't forget to thank the people who made the program possible. Thank them in writing, thank them on Facebook, thank them in your local weekly press release. Community helpers, donors, volunteers. If you had teen volunteers, give them a certificate that they can take to school to get credit. And you are done. Congratulations on your successful summer reading program. And now, Jack.
Summer reading resources. So we're going to take a look at the Collaborative Summer Library Program, or as we call it, CSLP. So welcome to the Summer Reading Manual. Please understand that the manual is very, very robust. We will be going into detail on what it is and how it can assist you. Think of the manual as like your AI assistant. You can use it to find ideas. Looking for something to do for tweens? Check the manual. Think you might like to partner with a school or a homeschool group, but aren't sure how? The manual already has a letter drafted for you. But remember, you don't have to do everything in the tome, but instead think of the manual as a way to make summer reading fun without having to invent an entire program. So the idea of a collaborative summer reading program, or CSLP, began when 10 Minnesota regional library systems developed a summer library program for children, choosing a theme, creating artwork, selecting incentives that public libraries in their region could purchase and use. State libraries and systems across the country join CSLP each year, including the New York State Library. The guiding principles are librarians sharing ideas, expertise, and cost to produce a high-quality summer reading program for children, teens, and adults. Each fall, the New York State Library shares the access code for the online manual with all New York State library systems. And then we, in turn, share the codes with all of you. You can visit the CSLP website, click on the download manual, enter the code, and then you have access to a digital copy of the manual and all of the digital artwork. How is it organized? Have I mentioned that this manual is very robust? There are two specialized sections. Chapter 1, Getting Started, and Chapter 8, Standalone Printables. So all of those coloring sheets and sign-up cards are in Chapter 8. The rest of the chapters 2 through 7 focus on the theme. So this year's theme is Adventure at Your Library. So Chapter 2 is Travel Adventures. Chapter 3 is Adventures in Nature. Chapter 4 is Imagination Adventures. Chapter 5 is Puzzles, Scavenger Hunts, and Mysteries. Chapter 6 is Adventure Close to Home. And Chapter 7, Adventure in the Dark. Before we look at the contents of these chapters, I should mention that there is a second table of contents organized by age. So it lists like all the programs that are considered early literacy, all the programs that are children's programs, all the programs that are tween programs, all the programs that are teen programs, all the programs that are adult programs, and all the programs that are multi-generational. Now let's take a peek inside Chapter 1, Getting Started. Let's get started and take our first actual dive into the manual and look at Chapter 1. You'll see there's a lot of information here to assist you. Early literacy, virtual story times, bilingual ideas, getting started with children, teens, and adults, and an outreach toolkit, and inclusive information for programs and services. But remember, this is your AI assistant, ready to answer all your questions. But this summer, I'm only interested in early literacy and maybe teen programs, getting started with teen programs. So let's take a look at some actual content. Let's start with the early literacy. So early literacy, here we have the 5 practices. Here you see the 2-page spread on 5 early literacy practices: talk, sing, read, write, and play. And below each section, there are ideas on how to facilitate early literacy for different age groups. So for example, under talk, we have something for babies. Encourage baby babble by asking questions, pointing to objects and describing what you are doing. Respond to babble as you would to full words. Under sing, we have something for adults. Children love singing, even if adults are off key. So sing away regardless of your skill. Under write, we have something for preschoolers. For preschoolers, cutting and tracing practice gets them closer to forming letters on their own. Sand in a tray is also great for making paths with fingers or thick-handled paintbrushes. And under play, my favorite, we have something for babies, toddlers, adults, and caregivers. Greet babies and toddlers as they enter story time with a colorful puppet. This sets the tone with giggles and models play for caregivers. So now let's take a look at getting started with teens. So this is the same example from Chapter 1, but now we're focusing on getting started with teens. So what do teens want besides food? Independence. So you have independence, excitement, empowerment, acceptance. There's engagement tips and even teen incentives. So for example, independence. Make sure teens have library cards and emphasize that their borrowing histories are confidential. Show them how to navigate library resources on their own. Ask them what books they want to see in the library. Empowerment. Give teens opportunities to grow by leading their peers, planning and executing library programs, and communicating and refining their interests. So those are the 2 specialized chapters. Now let's look at the chapters on summer programs. Here we have Chapter 2 and Chapter 3. As you can see, this chapter is organized by subject, so travel adventures and adventures in nature, and by age. You'll see early literacy sections, sometimes storytime ideas and books, programs for children, tweens, teens, and adults, and multi-generational. I think it might be fun to show you an example of a couple of programs from a couple of different subjects within various age ranges. This is really what we've all been waiting for. After a long build-up, let's get to the fun stuff. So here's an example of a children's program, Birdwatch Quest. You'll see that it is a game activity, passive, low cost, and we have the age. So this program is an in-library bird scavenger hunt for budding twitchers. Hang photos of individual birds throughout the library, each with a QR code that links to the sound of that each bird makes. Children receive a small birding journal in which they can identify the birds they find. This program can be passive or require engagement throughout the summer. For example, you can release a new bird every week. Children will love learning about the birds they see in their own neighborhood. Suggested runtime, passive. So it gives you a program description. You have materials and preparation. There's web resources. Then there's a list of books that relate to birding for different age groups. So you have picture books and early readers, and then printables. So maybe you thought, okay, but now I have to create my own bird journal with working QR codes that link to the Cornell Bird Sound website. Oh, do you? Or does the manual have you covered for that? Oh, it does. So the manual already has you covered. So let's look at a couple other examples. So this one is strawberry boba tea. It's teen oriented or multi-generational. Again, you have a program description. You have a list of materials and prep, the space that's required, more web stuff, history of boba, then books for YA books, and then printable tea recipe. So then you get the recipe for the boba tea. Here's another example of children's arts and craft, Under the Sea magic paper flashlight. So again, 5 to 8, what materials and preparations you need, the resources, books, the printables. So the manual also has your flashlight for you, so you can cut that out. There is some drawing for underwater sea creatures, but also if you didn't want to do that, the manual has it for you, of course. And then, so thank you for sitting through this wild adventure as we skim the surface of the summer reading manual. I'd like to end by mentioning the artwork that is available for you to use on your printed materials and your social media. This entire slide deck contains some samples of what's available. Here you can see 2 examples of here and here of Facebook posts. I think I would be remiss if I didn't mention the vast quantities of ready-to-go printables arranged by age group. Printables range from, sorry, excuse me, summer reading sign-up sheets, book and minute recording pages, coloring pages, puzzles, and even bingo cards. Just a reminder that there is way more here than you'd ever want to use, but your AI assistant just wants to be prepared for any and all adventures. And with that, I'd like to ask you to embark on an adventure this summer. Download the summer reading manual and the artwork and take one thing from the manual and make it your own.
Okay, I think it's over to me. And as we conceived of this training and we thought what would be useful to someone who was just starting summer reading program, because there are so many different aspects to summer reading program, as you've seen, we thought of a handout that would give you the kind of the basics of what you might need. So Jack, I'm wondering if you have those handouts on the slides that you could show that. The 2 slides that we had up a little bit earlier when after I finished,
Yes,
of the
yes.
handouts. And we are going to send you this handout after the presentation, but it is, as you'll see in a second, it lists various categories. It's there somewhere, almost at the end. Let's see. There it is. Exactly. Thank you. Okay. So this is our summer reading program nuts and bolts handout. As you'll see, it has a variety of different topical areas, and under each we give what that is, an example of what it might be, some links for more information, and triage. And of course, triage is when you assign priority to something based on where the MUNs can't talk today, based on where the funds and other resources are and can be best used. So for each thing you have a triage suggestion. So if you are a very small library, or if, half of your staff, wins the lottery because they went together on a ticket and they're leaving right before summer reading program, you can look back at this and say, oh, we got to scale this down. What's the least we can do? So as I said, we'll send you this link in just a few moments after the end of our training. So Jack, I'm going to ask you to stop sharing again. And we are going to go into a brief overview of kind of the range of responses to summer reading program. So we're going to start with a library that went all in, goes all in. Okay. And see
You
if
gotta
we
hold it
can
in front of your sweater.
hold it in front of me. Okay. Castleton Public Library, and Nurit is from Castleton now. Anyway, this is a library that goes all in, and to give you context, their service area is 1,473 people. They have 2 full-time staff and the rest are part-time, and they have some volunteers, but not, as I recall, a ton of them. So here is what they do for the summer. They do this whole multi-page brochure. They go all in. It's 10 weeks. It's 96 programs during 10 weeks, birth through adults. They offer paper or online tracking options. And they have decided that this is going to be where they put a ton of their focus in the summer. So this is one way to go all in on summer reading program. And next we're going to go to Jack for a different library.
So this one's what I would consider medium, but by a small library. So the Argyle Public Library serves a population of 3,500 with 1 full-time staff member and 2 part-time staff. So they created this trifold. On it, they give a description of what their summer reading program is, and this will be available to you afterwards. As you open it up, it shows their summer programs. So they listed all their summer programs on here. And then on the back is how you can join, right? So they went virtual through Read Squared. So they put a QR code on there that leads to their Read Squared page. And then in the inner flap, they list their reading goals. So what are the reading goals for 0 to 5, 1,000 minutes, 6 to 12, 800 minutes. 13 to 17, read 7 books, and adults read 3 books. And so that's their whole program right here. Then I'd like to share, on to you, Beth.
So one of my libraries is the Johnstown Public Library, and they have a larger service area with 11,000 people. They have 5 full-time staff and 6 part-time staff, but they have chosen to take a really different approach to summer reading, which is to make it as simple as possible. So what they do is they have everybody sign a pledge on a cutout shape to say that they promise that they're going to read what they love this summer. And they use those cutouts to decorate their library. And that is the extent of their registration. They do offer programs for different ages that people sign up for just as they would during the rest of the year. They do a lot of their advertising in the building, but they have really taken the pressure off of their staff and off of their families to just say, read what you love. And Jack has another example to share.
Yeah, so this Stillwater is very similar to Johnstown, where they want it to be less stressful for their staff and their patrons. So Stillwater serves a population of 8,000. They have 2 full-time and 8 part-time staff. So they don't really do any new programming. They continue typical programs that they normally do, but they brand them as the summer reading or choose your own adventure or adventure at your library. Last year, when patrons signed up, they received a summer reading bag with a reading journal, a calendar of activities, a pencil, and a stickers. If they shared their reading journal info with the staff, they could win little prizes. When patrons signed up, they were given construction paper to design their face. So these were then used to decorate the library for summer reading. And then I have an example of a library, 2 small libraries that collaborate. So Horicon and Chestertown in the Adirondacks. Horicon serves a population of about 1,400 and Chestertown around 3,000. Horicon has one part-time person. Chestertown has one full-time and two part-time. Those libraries are in close proximity. Patrons could register and share the number of pages they read at either library. So the libraries shared a Google Doc with participants and their reading numbers. They split programs between libraries depending on which program might be better suited for space or a particular location. And they combined summer reading funds, so they were able to purchase better prizes.
That happened in one of our libraries too, or two of our libraries, I should say, Valley Falls and Schaghticoke Library. So there are examples in various systems around the state of libraries, two libraries who collaborate like that, especially small ones who can have a bigger bang for their buck. So we're going to now stop the recording and we are going to move into questions and answers.